Right, welcome back to another part of the tutorial, and let's go ahead and then move on. So now that we got our API and we're fetching data, we need to populate these cards with the images. Now, one thing you need to note is, let's jump back to the API. Now with this API, they actually separate the images. So if you get back here to the guides and you scroll the way down, you can see images and you have basics. So click on that, and here if you basically read through, they have the image base URL and then the file path. Okay, so for example, you can see like the size for this, and you have the file path which we've seen from the API already. So the way this works is, if you wanted to get an image, you would have to get this constant file path and then what the movie or API gets you. So you can see, for example, for the Netflix logo, we have, let's say, this part, which is constant, and then this part, which is the Netflix logo, if I can highlight that. Okay, so what we need to do is, we are going to grab, you can grab any of them, but I'm just going to grab this one. So I'm going to do something like that, and then let's copy that. Then we can go back to VS Code and head on to our constants, and I'm just going to make a copy of this. And then I'll call this image path, not like that. And then we can paste that path in. So just to make sure we're on the same page. So remember, we always receive this part from the API. Okay, so you can check that by going to the API reference. And then let's get one of the, so let's say top rated. And let's try making a request here. So I thought this might be hard to see, but you can see the poster path. We have a / and then this JPEG. So more or less, if I make a copy of that and get back to VS Code, more or less, this is the final thing. Okay, so you can see how we are able to get the image here. So appending this part to this base URL gives us the full image. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. All right, so let's move on. So if you go back to our home screen, if I can find it, so the trending slider is this is where we need to populate our images. So what I'm going to do is I am going to cut this out, and in here I'm going to get a sized box to contain everything, and then the child of the size box is going to be a future builder. So we are using a future builder because what we return here is a future. Okay, we can't really start accessing things directly. And a future builder is exactly what we need to get access to all the properties that we need. So let me just add a const here so that we can get rid of these. Now the future builder takes two key properties. So it takes a future. Okay, so the future basically is this here. Okay, the future we created here, these trending movies, and notice that we load the movies we get, so the trending movies, into this. So we can pass that future here, so trending movies. And then, so let me get rid of this constant. And then the other part is a builder. Okay, and this builder is going to give us a context and a snapshot. Okay, now the beautiful thing is that this snapshot is basically, how do I put it? It contains a number of states we can check for. So we can check for an error state. So we can say if our snapshot dot has error. So we are saying that if it has an error, then we can do something. So maybe we can display that error. So we don't want to return a circular progress indicator if we have an error. We may want to see the error. So maybe let's return a center for now. And then the child of this center is going to be a text widget. And in this text widget, we can access the snapshot and then the error, and then we can turn this into a string. So to string, and then let me try and end that in there. Okay, so we are saying that if the snapshot has an error, then we want to go ahead and display whatever the error is. You can literally display something else, like something happened or so. Then we can go ahead and say else if we can check another state. So we can also say that if our snapshot has data, so you can see we have a number of things we can check, even the connection state. But for now, we are going to check if our snapshot has data. So this is where we are checking to see if we've actually received the data. What do we want to do? So what we can do here is we can actually grab the snapshot data, the data that it has. So we can do something like final, and then let's say data is equal to, then we can say snapshot dot data. Oops. So this isn't something that is mandatory to do. We are just trying to shorten this. So we are capturing whatever the data is and storing it in this variable, so that each time we want to use it, we can just say data dot something and then we move ahead, so that we don't always have to type snapshot dot data and then move on. So this is totally optional. You can do this or you can just ignore it. Okay, so now that we know whether our snapshot has data, we can then go ahead and then return what we want to return. So here I can paste back the trending slider. Okay, I can paste back our trending slider. And finally, so if I can get this else, so finally this is where maybe the loading state. So this is where we can just return let me actually use like a size box instead of a you know what, let me use a center widget and need to make this a const. So here we can already see we are getting some complaints that this isn't used and all of that. So I just realized we technically don't even need to have this here at the meantime. So let me get rid of that. At this point, if I save this, nothing really is going to happen because we are not populating these cards with anything. Now the thing is, because we abstracted the trending slider into its own class, we would have to go there and then work on it. So what do I mean by that? So if I go all the way up, not up, but to the side, and then I go to the trending slider here, you can see this is where we have the actual cards, and this is where we actually have to populate this. So what we can do is we can pass in the constructor here saying that we would need, if VS Code will allow me to see, an async async snapshot. So we'll just call this snapshot. Okay, and then let's add that here. So control period, and then we can just do this. So we are simply saying that each time we want to create this trending slider class, we would need the snapshot. Now, if we go back to the home screen, you can see that we need that snapshot. Okay, so what we can simply do here is pass in the snapshot we have from here, and this cannot be a constant. Okay, and I even believe we do not even need these here. So what I can do is I'm going to cut this. So I'm cutting this part, and then I'm going to take that. Okay, no, I don't have to cut it. Sorry, I don't have to cut it. So leave that there, and then we move back to the trending slider. Now we just need to get access and provide the images here. So over here where we returned a container, so that we could see what we have, we actually want to change this and make it a size box. Okay, so I'm going to remove this part. In fact, there's no need. I can just make this a sized box, and then here we can change this. Come on, VS Code, to a child, and then here the child is then going to be an image.network. And we are using image.network because we are getting the image from an API which comes over the internet, so the network, you understand. And then we need to provide a source, but before the source, I'm going to use the filter quality, and I'm just going to provide the highest quality. And then I'm also going to use the fit property and use the box fit. Am I not? Oh, that's Cox fit. So box fit, I'm going to go with cover And then finally, we can provide the URL to that image. So if you realize or remember, we have that in here, the image path. So we are going to do some concatenation to get there. So let's go back to the trending slider. So we are going to use string interpolation, and we are going to call our constants, and then we get access to the image path. Okay, so we've gotten this, if I can get we've just accessed this half part. Now remember the other part I showed you, the / and then to the image, that part we get from the API. So what we can do is we can have another interpolation here. So over here, this is where we can also get access to what? The image. So notice how we use the snapshot here. That's where we can have access to everything. So it says snapshot, then we need to access the item. Now we don't know exactly the item, but since we are using a builder here, each item is represented by its index here. So we can use the item index just like this and use the dot operator. Then we can access the so for some reason this always doesn't give you like the suggestions. So let me go back to my model and look at what I call. I don't even know which one I want. I think I need the poster path. Okay, so let's copy that and then we can paste that in here. Let's see what the issue is here. So I think I have to say snapshot.data. Yes. So I need to access the data before the item index. That's one thing I forgot to do. So make sure you correct that. And if we've done this correctly, if I go ahead and save, and as you can see, we are able to load the images of the movies, as you can see. So that is well and done. Put a comma here, and then let's format this. So I hope this part makes sense, and literally we would be applying a similar thing to these ones. Okay, so for these parts, this is top rated movies and this is upcoming. So to get this to work, we need to head back to our API, and we are literally going to use a similar thing here. So what we'll do is I'll make a copy of this. So I'm going to duplicate this, and this becomes top rated URL. So I'll call this top rated URL. Now we need to go ahead and get the top rated URL. So heading back to the API, and so lucky enough, it was what I used for the example here. So we just need to grab the URL. So if I select this entire part all the way to top rated, this is what I need. Make a copy of that, head back to VS Code, and I can replace this entire part. So HTTPS all the way to day, and then paste that part here, top rated. Then the next thing I'll do is get hold of this future. So right here, and then make a copy of this. Okay, let me give some space in here, and then change this to get top rated. So this becomes top rated movies, and then I need to change the URL here to match the top rated URL over here. Now again, check your API to see what you return. Now it is possible that the top rated may have different return values. Okay, but as you can see, we have the original language, original title, overview, popularity, poster part, very similar to our movie model that we use. So we can still use our movie model, but it is essential that you check and make sure that the other endpoints have the same or contain what you have selected. But if it is totally different, then you have to make a model that also matches it. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So now that we have this, we can go ahead and then do the same. So what I'll do is, instead of going to work on this and coming back, I'll just make a copy of this also. What's going on? And then this becomes the upcoming movies. So I'm going to name this upcoming URL, head back to the browser, and then get the upcoming. So just like I did earlier, I'm going to grab this part up to upcoming, and then we can head back to VS Code, and then we are simply going to change. In fact, all I need to do is just change this part, but since I've grabbed everything, let me just paste that in. Okay, and now I can make a copy of this also, and then change this to get upcoming. So this becomes get upcoming movies, and then we change the URL. So that's something you need to make sure you change. Paste it here, give a little bit of space. So we have the 3 API calls to the the 3 endpoints. Okay, so now we can get back to the home screen and then create 2 copies of this. So this, oh, I named this badly, so let me make a change. So pressing F2, this has to be trending movies. I'm sure some of you noticed this. Pressing enter, and then so now this is going to represent let me see, is it top rated? Yeah, top rated. So here becomes top rated movies, it's future, and then this becomes upcoming movies. And then just as we did, I'm just going to duplicate this and then change these. So I'm going to copy this, paste this here, copy this, paste this here, and then change these. So here we need to get the, so we have trending movies, this top rated, so we get the top rated, and then the upcoming, here we get upcoming. Okay, so now when we scroll down to these parts, is literally a very similar thing we are going to do. So we have the movies slider, if I can move it. So in this movies slider, I can go ahead and control click on it, and then just as we did with the trending slider, we are going to pass in an async snapshot because we will need that. Call this snapshot and then simply add that here. Then heading back to the home class, so you can see now it requires this snapshot. Okay, so what I'll do is I have to do the same thing. So I'm just going to grab this entire size box, I'm going to make a copy of it, and I'm going to place it here. So I'm going to paste this here, and then so here we need to change the future to top rated, and let's just check everything. So here we don't need to return a trending slider, but we need to return a movies slider, and then we'll do the same thing here. So I'm going to cut this out and paste this here, and over here we also need to change this to upcoming movies, and this also has to be a movies slider, just like so. Now, one thing you must notice at this point, these 2 guys, we haven't loaded the movies we have fetched. We haven't fetched these movies into these futures. Okay, we haven't. So if you try to do anything, it may crash. And we haven't even used the snapshot here. Notice that this movie slider is the same thing we are using here in 2 places. Okay, that's why we don't really have to do much. We just need to use the movie slider. Now over here, we need to also populate the images. And the beautiful thing is, since this is just the only thing we have, the movie slider, once we make that change, it would affect these here. So just like we did earlier, and now I think I made a mistake. So going back to the trending slider, see the item count, I didn't change this. So by default, it's just getting 10 movies. But the thing is, this snapshot could have 200 movies, 20 movies that it is returning. So I don't want to limit it. Okay, what if it's returning just 2? You understand? So what we can do is we can simply say snapshot.data, then we can get the length of it. So we're having the same thing. So just go ahead and type in the length, just like so. So if the snapshot data has 200 now, then we are going to have access to the 200. And you can go ahead and also tell that whatever happens, this snapshot is going to have data using the bang operator. Okay, so we can go back to the movie slider and do the same thing. So we have the item count here also. So we can simply say snapshot.data, and then we can access the length. So make sure you spell that right. And then here when we come, we can replace this with a size box. Now you can maintain the container, but per that conventions, you're kind of advised to use size box where you're not using properties of a container. So I'm going to get rid of the color here, and I'm going to access the child property, and the child property is going to be an image.network. So just as we did. So over here, I'm going to get the filter quality and get the highest quality, and then the box fit, sorry, the fit property, we can use box fit dot cover, and then finally the URL. So just as we did, we need to have go to our constants. So using string interpolation, our constant, so we access the constants, and then we can access the image path, and then outside of that but still in the code, so you can see that we do another interpolation, so just like we did earlier. And then here we can grab the snapshot dot data, and let's just use the bang operator here for measure, and then here we need to access index. So here is not item index but index, and then here we can access the poster path, I believe, spelled that wrongly. We can access the poster path. So if I go ahead and save this, we are going to have this crash. So as you can see, trending movies, so the field trending movie hasn't been initialized. So that's what I was trying to say, because we haven't loaded the movies into these. That is why. So all we need to do is restart the app just like this, and that will make a call at the beginning. Okay, and as you can see, we've loaded this part. Now we are getting this error saying type int is not a subtype of double. Now when you are getting this kind of errors, something like this during API calls, it's mostly due to, if I can get to my model, so let's get to our model, it's mostly due to one of these here. Okay, so you can see our movie, we have strings all the way, and here we have double. Now it is possible that even though your API, if you look at the structure, it may be returning, so the vote average here is what we know to be a double. Okay, now it is possible that even though your API is saying that it is returning a double, remember in the previous videos I said it is a good practice to cast this as a double also, just to make sure everything is right. So for something like this, we can use the to double, so we can say to double here just like this, and then let's go ahead and save this and then reload the app and see if this changes anything. And now you can see that works. So sometimes this happens. Okay, that's why I said it is a good practice to actually make sure that, so something like release date is a string, so I can say dot to string just to make sure that I get that done. So that is something you can do. So be mindful of this kind of error when you're working with APIs. Okay, but I hope that didn't confuse you that much. Remember, like I also said, you can also typecast them, so something like a string. Okay, so that's why I mentioned that in the earlier video, but it's a good thing this happened so that you can see how you can fix something like this. Or just in case, wait, there's a movie called The Marvels. Interesting. There's another Resident Evil movie. Oh, anyway, let's get on with the app. All right, so we've got this front part done. Now we need to work on, when we click on this, what happens? Where do we go to? Okay, so we need to create our details page, where when we click on one of these, we can go on to the what do you call it, the next page. So I don't know how long this video is. I really don't want to create long videos, but I've seen a lot of you can't wait for me to finish the entire app. But I'm going to end this here so that in the next part we work on the final part, which is going to be the detail screen. Okay, so thanks for your patience and thanks for watching the videos. If you enjoyed it, please do leave a like, subscribe and share it, and I'll see you in the final part. Take care.